Stop what you are doing and assume the party escort submission position. Assume the party escort submission position or you will miss the party.
What is up, my wizards? It's Dev back again from SBMTG, and we finally get to do deck techs again, like non-stop, and it's going to be awesome. Our very first deck tech officially since like every single thing's been spoiled, and we are going to do something really, really neat that I think is actually super stronger than it looks. This is Abzan Enchantments, and I know that some of you are pretty excited about this. We have like 4 or 5 different things we were going to do with this. Settled on Abzan. I do think it's the strongest thing as far as competitive play goes. So let me go ahead and let you know what's up with this crazy thing. Let me go ahead and let you know about the creatures in this deck, which we are playing a few of here, most of which are enchantments, but this guy's not. We're obviously playing 4 copies of Herald of the Pantheon. Why not play this guy? Really helps you out. That second ability helps you out a lot against aggro because we do have some setup time, and obviously, it helps you out against pretty much everything, and then it ramps you into your other enchantments. I considered playing Elvish Mystic in this deck, but I think Herald does the job well enough, and we're obviously playing 4 of him, and he is every bit as good as he reads, so there's that. You know that now. This guy's crazy. We're playing 4 Courser of Crufix because we also have to do that, an enchantment creature. We can get out of the battle, we can get out of the graveyard with Starfield, and it counts towards Starfield. Not only that, but goes with Herald very well. You know, second turn Herald, third turn this. We can really protect ourselves well against aggro in that case, and helps us out a lot in the long game too, especially when those 2 cards combine. So no reason not to play Courser, one of the best creatures in the entire format. Gonna do it. We're playing 4 Eidolon of Blossom, something else we probably have to play, honestly, when you're considering the shelf for this deck. You can think of a few cards right off the top of your head, and this certainly goes in there. All 4 copies, gives us ridiculous value, and we get often more than 1 trigger return. So yeah, we're doing this. And we're playing 1 copy of Nyx Weaver. I'm considering 2, honestly. This creature's very good. Not only can you get it within Starfield of Nyx, not only does it count towards Nyx's count, but this helps you get things that we commune into the graveyard, or perhaps if we don't have a Starfield, but we do have some things in our graveyard, helps us get it back. Anything that we accidentally mill or that hits the graveyard because it got removed. This helps us get it back, and it helps us put things in our graveyard to fuel Starfield's first ability. So actually a pretty good card. I'm considering adding a second one, but we already do most of the things we want to do without him. There is another in the sideboard. This is Doomweight Giant, and it's insane, especially once you get set up. It's just absolutely nuts. With the Starfield out, you obviously get at least the neg1 every turn, as long as you're Starfielding correctly. Eidolon of Blossoms, if you have that out, which is the thing that happens. You get a lot of good board presence in this deck. Very resilient, because when its creatures get removed, they can just get Starfielded right back into play. So a lot of board presence, Eidolon of Blossoms, Doomweight Giant, Starfield, these things are out on the field a lot at the same time. So, you'll be able to get neg1 every turn with Starfield, plus, you'll draw more cards with Eidolon of Blossoms, enabling you to play more enchantments. Many times you get multiple triggers off of Doomweight Giant in the same turn, and that is the key to making the card good, and we have done that, definitely in this deck. There are times where you can get, neg3, and that's when it just starts getting absolutely insane. But of course, Starfield's turned on, we have, and just with a huge creature like Doomweight in play, we can swing through a lot, even if we don't kill everything. Just 1 or 2 activations, we can swing right into Siege Rhino, Ojutai, we don't really care that much. And it's worth noting that his ability doesn't target, and it's neg1, so it'll kill things like hexproof creatures and indestructible creatures. So Doomwake is very good, especially when we get multiple triggers off of it a turn. And it is a win condition. Very good card in this deck. Also, I want to address this before I move on. I didn't play Nyx Fleece Ram in the creatures. A lot of people are saying that's very good. I left it in the board. 4 copies in the board, actually, against aggro. I think that Herald and Courser, and of Courser's high toughness, too, really help us out early game against aggro. Not quite enough, but not enough for me to be willing to devote 4 slots to Nyx Fleece Ram. Let's move on to the spells here, which we're not playing too darn many of. We are playing 2 Commune with the Gods, and we're playing 1 Crufix's Insight. That's all we got for the spells. Crufix's Insight is obviously ridiculous advantage 90% of the time. It's just crazy. A lot of times you'll be able to dump more enchantments into your graveyard, pick 3, and then dump a couple into the graveyard, which is just insane. At least 1 sometimes goes to the graveyard, which we don't really care in this deck. We can Starfield them back, and we don't mind. We can Nyx Weaver them back, don't mind. So a lot of good things about Crufix's Insight, and I would consider playing more, although I really like Commune with the Gods an awful lot in this, and I would maybe play 3, but this is a very tight tight deck list, so it was kind of hard to justify letting go of a creature or another enchantment. We are playing one artifact before we move on to the meat of this deck, the enchantments. We are playing one Helm. Helm is actually pretty darn good. I mean, obviously, if you've got Starfield turned on, then this is a +5/+5 at the very least. And very cheap to cast, very cheap to equip. This turns out to be a fine card and can sometimes really put one of your enchantments, or just a Courser of Crucifix even, over the top. I would consider more, but I would not play 4, and 2 would probably be my max. This is a fine card, and if this accidentally goes to the graveyard from a Commune with the Gods, we can get it back with the Nyx Weaver, so that's at least one good reason to play the Weaver. So, Helm of the Gods has been better in testing than I expected it to be, and maybe play more copies, although again, very tight deck list. Now let's talk about the enchantments, sort of the meat of the deck here. I'm going to start with a controversial one, although it shouldn't be. In this deck, it overperforms. I've got 2 copies of Evolutionary Leap, and Leap is insane in this, gives us a sacrifice outlet so that we can put more enchantments into the graveyard and then get them back with Starfield. Activating certain comes into play abilities like Doomwake, Eidolon of Blossoms. That's very, very important. Plus, when we do Leap, we usually get, we always get a desirable creature, whether it's Herald of the Pantheon, Courser of Crucifix, another Doomwake Giant. 2 on the board is insane. Same with the Eidolon. If we get another Eidolon off of it and play that, 2 Eidolons on the board is just absolutely nuts. And even if you're just leaping into your first Eidolon of Blossoms, it's helping you set up an awful lot. So Leap really does, like I said, overperform in this deck and helps us sacrifice one of our problem enchantments that will be bad if we don't enchant. We're only playing 1 copy. You probably guess what it is. But in any case, this does a lot for us in this deck. A lot of value. A sacrifice outlet helps us get to our other creatures and extra copies of important creatures we already have on the board. Any creature that we're playing in this deck gives us a hell of a lot of value in multiples. Every single one of them does. So Evolutionary Leap is very good, and I really can't praise this card enough in this deck. We're playing 4 copies of Banishing Light because, again, we have 2. This is another one of those that's just in the shell for this deck. Helps get rid of everything and becomes a 3/3 once we turn our Starfield on. Helps activate our Starfield. If they manage to remove it, we can get it back with Starfield or Nyx Weaver. There's lots of stuff that Banishing Light accomplishes and has synergies with in this deck. So, for Banishing Light, probably the best removal that we can play. We're playing 1 copy of Demonic Pact in this deck, and this has worked out a little bit better than I thought it would. Obviously, this is what we can sack to Evolutionary Leap and then bring it back into play with Starfield the next turn and just keep getting the best parts of it. That's very important, although it does have to be out after you Starfield it for like a whole turn before you can use it again. That's kind of bad, but in the meantime, it's a 4/4 if you've got Starfield's second ability turned on. So, Demonic Pact does an awful lot. Multiple turns of it staying in play really help us out. Obviously, if we use the Draw 2 Cards ability, we can use that to play more enchantments, get more value off of those. The first mode on it is just insane and can sometimes win us a game, especially during attrition battles, because we build up a good, like I said, board presence. So do some of the other decks in this format right now, especially the Manifest type decks, the Master of the Unseen, the green-white decks, some of the Abzan Megamorph decks. So we have a lot of ways of winning stalemates against those decks. This is one of them. Do like the card, it turns out, but only under the right conditions, which we do have in this deck. 1 copy of Whip of Erebos. Obviously, this is another way that we can get double or triple value out of Doomwake or Eidolon of Blossoms in the same turn. That's pretty cool, and giving our creatures lifelink is ridiculous, if Starfield is turned on especially, because this can swing in for 4 lifelink, which is pretty cool, and gives all of our huge enchantments, lifelink, which is just can really put us over the top. Didn't want to play 2, we definitely have ways of getting the 1, we have Commune, we have Crucifix's Insight, we have lots of stuff. So we will find our 1 copy, and it's not absolutely necessary, but it doesn't feel much like win more, it feels like great synergy, so I ended up playing the 1 copy. We are playing 3 Sigil of the Empty Throne, another good win condition. Note that if you Starfield of Nyx something into play, it doesn't work. You're not casting an enchantment, but still very good because if we do Starfield something into play, we're often getting value off of Eidolon of Blossoms, drawing more cards. We have Crucifix's Insight, Commune with the Gods, so plenty of ways to get enchantments and play them and get 4/4 angels out of them. So this is an insane card. Didn't want to play the full 4, it just seemed clunky. And obviously, if Starfield's turned on, this is a 5/5, so that's pretty awesome too. Yeah, I can't praise this card enough either. Honestly, Sigil, this is the deck for it, and it actually does perform very well. Helps, again, break stalemates. Every turn that goes by, you get a 4/4 flyer, which especially against the decks we're making stalemates against. That is a very, very good ability. So, again, I think this deck is good against some of the things in this format. Not against others, but some of the more important decks in the format. So there's that. And we got 4 copies of the bad boy right here, Starfield of Nyx. I've probably said it, drink every time I say Starfield of Nyx. Go back and watch this, drink every time I say Starfield, because it's probably like 30 times by now. You'd be blacked out by the time you got here. But anyway, Starfield does have some issues, regardless of all the praise I've heaped on it here. As soon as it becomes a creature through its second ability, it will almost certainly be, Abzan Charmed or Ultimate Priced or something like that. They're not going to leave it on the field for too long, although we do have, Commune with the Gods, again, Nyx Weaver to get it back if we have to do that. So we have ways of getting this back too, and we have the 4 copies, so we can just keep them coming. And multiple copies on the battlefield sometimes. Survives Languish, that's somewhat important in this format. Just does a lot of things for us too, keeps the deck running, and we don't absolutely have to have it to win. We can still win off of Sigil, we can still win off of Doomweight Giant, but this really is, this puts the oil in the machine right here. This does a lot for us, is the cornerstone of the deck. We can win without it, but if this is on the board, and especially if the second ability is turned on, this often wins us the game over the course of a few turns. So Starfield of Nyx really is that good once it hits the battlefield. Let's give you the lands right now. Been playing Abzan for a while, but this is a different beast than usual. We're not really playing that much black in this deck, and we could always pitch black cards into our graveyard through Commune with the Gods and things like that, and then play them for free through Starfield. So we're not really that worried about producing black mana in this mana base like a lot of the Abzan decks are. Skewed a little bit more towards green-white, so that's notable. But aside from that, it's fairly typical. Well, let me go ahead and talk about the board here for a second. There's an awful lot of options in the board. Agent of Erebos is slightly slow, but very good against certain decks. Reclamation Sage helps us kill our own Demonic Pact and other stuff so we can fuel more ETB into the battlefield interactions with Starfield. Sorin I do like in this. Silk Wrap is very good. Farika, very good against those same decks that Agent of Erebos is good against. But there are other things. I considered playing Archetype of Endurance and Brain Maggots. Those weren't quite good enough. And Dictate of Heliod felt very win-more and kind of casual. And the closest thing, there are other things I considered, but the closest thing was Spectral Ward. I almost played that in the main deck, but again, it felt slightly win-more, but was almost there. Just didn't quite feel right. Here are the power rankings. I know that's what you come here for sometimes, some of you. This deck is quite consistent. It's fairly versatile, although we do have a problem against aggro and control. Although other mid-range decks we just absolutely eat alive because we're so resilient. We get all of our guys back through a couple of different means, and we can evolutionary leap things on the block and get more value. We can gain life a lot over the course of the game, and once we get to the long parts of the game, we have a lot of value to gain. So we are fairly resilient, we are very consistent, and this deck can win a lot of games. This deck looks casual on paper, but is very competitive, honestly. There are other versions of the deck that feel a little more casual. Before I'm out here, I do want to mention there is a Bant Enchantments deck that I had put together and just felt a little off, but it uses Elemental Bond and obviously Eidolon of Blossoms and Sphinx's Tutelage, and you can draw, 3-4 cards every turn and just end up, milling them out over the course of 3 or 4 turns. And using, just really good defense. Again, you're gaining a lot of life off of Courser and Herald, so there's that. But I didn't think Bant Enchantments was quite there. But Abzan Enchantments, I think, is very, very good. And this probably isn't the actual iteration we'll get. It'll probably look closer to traditional Abzan, but it will have some tricks if we see a Starfield deck at all. But I think this is a very strong thing. It's just a lot of ideas and a lot of great synergies. So try it out. I'd love to take this up to F&M or even a Pro Tour qualifier. I think this is actually a fairly competitive deck in this format just because it's so resilient, and once it gets going, it's a snowball. It just gets enormously huge. You get so much value every single turn. You start playing up to turns where you can Starfield something into play and whip something into play, draw cards through Eidolon of Blossoms, get multiple triggers off of Doomweight Giant, and just do get 2 4/4 flyers in the same turn. All this happens in one turn. It's just the turns get insane, and it busts up stalemates very well, goes long very well. It just has to get there. That's part of the problem. You could play Nyx Fleece Ram in the main deck, although I'm kind of against that. as sort of a foregone conclusion, you know. I don't think it just automatically belongs in the main deck. Especially since we'll see what aggro does. It'll probably get a little bit stronger with goblins and elves. Possibly soldiers, we'll have to wait and see. But I do think it's a very strong and obviously incredibly fun to play deck. Once it gets going, it just does all of the things. Kills all the guys, draws all the cards, makes all the creatures. It's just crazy. So play it. Let me know how you feel. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Sub if you haven't done that yet. Like, share, comment, subscribe. The next thing we got going, the next thing I'm putting up at least, is green, black elves. I know a lot of people are super stoked for that, so stay tuned. We got more coming. Even than that, we got a lot of insane ideas for deck techs, and Magic Origins is just insane. So, yeah, stick with us. I'm Deb from SBMTG, and I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching, my wizards.